Thanks to a bit of experimentation and a key from V-Rising, we're able to get V-Rising working on Steam Deck and show you some awesome gameplay here at 30 plus frames per second. Now, big shout out to Gaming on Linux for finding the fix for this, and we'll show you that in a little while. But first of all, a bit about the performance. As you can see, it sits around 30 frames per second, and I will show you the settings, but it really doesn't make a lot of difference. I'm not sure whether this is because of the experimental Proton, or that they're just still optimizing things in game, but it does not seem to go much above 30 frames per second no matter what the settings we choose. So the footage that you're seeing here is at all high settings at 1280 by 800. Anti-aliasing doesn't really make a lot of difference, and the AMD FSR is only 1.0, but even setting this to performance only gains us around 5 frames per second and makes it look a lot more blurry. So even on ultra quality, it only gains a few frames per second and does make the image slightly more blurry. But if you want a bit more stable 30 frames per second, then you can enable this, but it does make the frame time jump up somewhat. So I have found that it's best to just leave it on high settings and not have the FSR on at all. As you can see, it does play exceptionally well. The control scheme does not support a controller by default. However, the default community layout that it loads with over 1014 hours already does play exceptionally well and keeps everything mapped the way that you need, although you do still need to bring up the keyboard for a few of those essentials. But the Steam keyboard does pop up very reliably. So to get this running on Steam Deck, thanks to Gaming on Linux for finding this fix, you need to go to Proton Experimental in your library. If you just search in the top bar, you will see Proton Experimental returned in the list here. You just use the search from anywhere. Go into Proton Experimental and go to the properties. You will then need to go down to the betas tab and change from no beta to the bleeding edge latest and untested version. And then you will need to change your V-Rising launch to also use Proton Experimental. Now, the first time you turn on that beta, it will do a download, which will take a couple of minutes. And then you can just set Proton Experimental in V-Rising and away you go. If you try to use any of the other Protons, even Proton Experimental without the beta, the game just does not launch. So you'll know straight away whether that works because the game will launch. As you can see, it takes a bit of getting used to, and V-Rising is an exceptionally fun game. If you were a fan of Valheim but wanted a bit more abilities, then being a vampire with Valheim type maps is definitely the way to go. Feeding on animals to get your blood up and being able to heal and gain abilities, as well as the crafting and weapon systems, really keeps you engaged. I can see why this has exploded. I can't wait to spend a lot more time in V-Rising, and I'll certainly be spending more time in the PvE servers than PvP, especially after it's quite difficult and having to avoid sunlight, of course, during the day, otherwise you get killed quite quickly. Let me know in the comments below if you're going to be diving into V-Rising and now it's working on Steam Deck, whether you'll be playing on deck as well. I'll leave you with a bit more of the gameplay here so you can see the game and performance without me talking. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.